So your companion fair is 5th of September, usually.
Can anyone hear me? Can anyone hear me yet?
No, your Alaska Airlines card, I'm on it. That's my address or yours?
Some people ratchet strap it.
Yeah, Tom, can you hear us yet?
Yeah, now I got you. Do you guys hear me? I had you. Did you get turned off?
Hey, are you there, Tom?
My email.
Yeah, now I got you.
Okay.
You know all the tricks. Yeah.
I'm ready.
You ready? Okay, we'll call the city council public hearing of April 17th, 6:45 PM to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Allison,
Here?
Tom Baylor,
Here.
Kathy Sherman is absent, Casey Kinsman,
Here.
Wendy Rainey,
Here.
Dave Zastro,
Here.
Kristen Carpenter. Here. And Ken Jones.
Here.
That's a quorum of council.
Okay, our public hearing tonight is on ordinance 1216. An ordinance of the council of the city of Cordova, Alaska, accepting and appropriating $20 million awarded to the city through the Rebuild America Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity Grant for completion of the South Harbor Rebuild Project, and authorizing a borrowing in anticipation of the receipt of these funds in the aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $3 million. Finance South Harbor Rebuild Project costs. And for those online, there is nobody in the audience yet tonight. So
Recess?
well, if you could indulge me, maybe I'll save some time later and ask my question now, if you,
Oh, okay.
would that'd be okay? I just have a quick question. I was just wondering the reasoning behind not borrowing from ourselves again. Why are we,
I guess the reasoning was that we didn't want to get that much out of the permanent fund. Was my logic there. But, I mean, we can do that again, but I don't know. I think it's a last ditch effort. I mean, it's like.
I didn't think about it before,
Yeah.
quite frankly, or I would have mentioned something last time, but I think if it's 1 year loan and it's backed by the permanent fund already, that's $150,000 at 5%, and I think this loan is maximum of 10, but somewhere below that, but we charged ourselves 5% last time. But anyway, that's my thought. I went to the school board meeting last night and I'll report on that later, but they could use 150,000 pretty desperately. So anyway, just thought, something to think about.
Blake talked about, the, the more you take out, you start going the opposite way.
Sure, I can see both ways. I just was curious why we did it one and then not the next time.
I think that was always the idea, was to take the minimum, out, and then in case of a dire emergency, we would have that line of credit and back up. So we could.
Anyway, something to think about between now and when we bring this up, I guess. There being nobody else in the audience, let's recess for 5 minutes or so.
Okay.
There's nobody here, Tom, so we're just gonna recess for a little bit.
Sounds good.
Definitively say if you guys amend it, it'll need another first reading.
I hear you.
And I don't know if that's.
Well, it would be a completely different
Right.
resolution at that time, so,
Well, isn't this,
yeah.
This is the ordinance, and the second read of the ordinance for the.
for the line of credit or?
For the line of credit.
Our line of credit.
Or
I keep getting them confused. Yeah.
the key bank line of credit.
This is the key bank.
This is the key.
Right, the key bank.
Our
already
3
paid off.
million is done. That one's done, and I'm guessing, do we have any money left of that?
Oh my God, holding a little bit for the general fund.
Yeah, because I just,
Yeah.
So much out of it.
that,
The
we're still gonna be
900.
I meant to say that.
in the hole or something like this, so they're talking about.
You're saying with the permanent fund, we end up going the other way. What do you mean by that?
Those are the.
Well, once your investments get
I don't
too
wanna-
Go
small,
on.
So the
then
return.
you're not making.
Well,
Yeah.
Wouldn't anticipate. We're still finishing up our public hearing. There was nobody here when we started it, so just comments on ordinance 1216. Accepting the raise grant and setting up a line of credit for $3 million to help us along until we get reimbursed. Anything? Hearing none, seeing nobody coming, we will adjourn the public hearing.
When's your talk?
Oh, at the Science Center?
Yeah,
23rd, next Tuesday.
The library.
Yeah.
I heard it on the radio.
Oh, you did? Wow.
Good lady.
I
Yeah,
was like, oh, that might be something I wanna listen to.
yeah,
She-
yeah.
the lady, With the lady.
Different.
Cold water lady.
For all.
Oh, my God.
That's
Because you put that on.
Yeah,
that was. Oh, yeah, you knew that was gonna happen.
Yeah, I want to share the website.
They
Real
latch
time.
on. People who are willing to do that.
Does he gotta set it up again for
It's ready.
For the
You'll just
meeting?
have to unmute Tom,
Order it, so you can track it.
or no, Tom's.
he can unmute himself?
Yeah.
I think he just has to put YouTube.
Who's
Yeah.
in charge of doing the cabin building? I know you guys got some.
Yeah, we're just about ready to start here. We're just checking to make sure we're online.
Jason, are we YouTubing?
My cabin. Sure.
Oh, we're on?
I heard. So Steve was saying.
When are you doing?
Shh.
Yeah,
Good.
Yes.
well, this land's got it.
Little tiny-
It's restricted.
Hey, we ready? You ready?
I was excited.
Okay, we'll call the city council regular meeting of April 17th, 7 PM to order. Please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Allison,
Here.
Tom Baylor,
Here.
Kathy Sherman. Here. Casey Kinsman,
Here.
Wendy Rainey. Here. Dave Zastro,
Here.
Kristen Carpenter. Here. Ken Jones.
Here.
That is all of council.
Okay, any objection to the agenda? Okay, hearing none, the agenda will be approved. Disclosure of conflicts of interest and ex parte communications. Seeing none, hearing none, go along to communications by and petitions of visitors. We do have a couple guest speakers tonight. Kate Morse from the Copper River Watershed Project on the Eak Lake Weir replacement project. Welcome, Kate.
Good evening. Navigate. Oh, you see, 'cause I'm on that girl. Thanks.
Does she need to open or is it?
Oh, this is
It's it.
not what I was supposed to be opening. Did you already have it open?
No, it's these two, right?
Sure, I just saw COWP and so I thought that was me.
I would have
Okay,
gone to
great.
that one also. How funny.
I think they're the same thing. I don't want to do that. Here we go. Well, thank you everyone for your time here on council and for letting me go through a little bit of an update specific to the Eak Lake Weir project. I think everyone's familiar with the Weir, but just to make sure, if you're not familiar with our organization, we're a nonprofit that's based here in Cordova, but we're working throughout the Copper River region to support partnerships that support healthy watershed. And the partnership that I am talking about this evening is specific to the Eak Lake Weir. And so we'll move Tom out of the way here. Sorry, Tom. So these are the list of the partners that we've been working with for developing a plan to move forward with trying to address the failing weir. And I just want to emphasize that this project is not the Copper River Watershed project. This is all of our project. We're just the facilitator that's been convening the partners and pursuing funding to help make it happen, but we don't have all the expertise or all the answers. And or all that's at stake is not just, something for us, it's something for our entire community. And so what our expertise is to herd the cats and ask the hard questions. And so just wanted to give you an update on some of the hardest questions we've been facing. Right, there you go. So this is a pre-earthquake photo, just to remind ourselves that at one point in time, the weir was not in existence and the lake drained right into its river naturally. But it was the earthquake of 64 that started to change the lake levels, and we were able to sleuth that it was a city decision to pursue the implementation of the weir project to try to maintain the lake levels, but it was the state who facilitated and actually oversaw the contract to make it happen. Unfortunately, it was an agency that no longer exists. It was a division of Public Works and Harbors. And so it's over the years, there's been a lot of difficulties to identify the appropriate means for maintaining the structure. And we are interested in addressing this before it completely fails, being proactive to give ourselves the time to be thoughtful, to be strategic in in what we're implementing so that we have a long-term stable structure to achieve multiple goals. The most of the funding is motivated through fish habitat restoration funding, and so improving fish passage. So the weir was installed to maintain near shore sockeye salmon habitat underwater, so maintaining the lake levels, keep the spawning beds underwater. But since the 70s, there's been a lot more understanding for the importance of juvenile rearing habitat. And so the weir itself is acting more like a dam. And it is it is not maximizing the productivity and is not maximizing the benefits of this habitat. And as you can see from some of these pictures, this bulge right here is used to be original alignment on this yellow line. So this is kind of the weir starting to tip over. This aerial photo shows there's a little outburst over on this side. And then this facing the front shows you a little bit more. Some of these seams are starting to give way. And sometimes I drive by and I'm convinced that there's new leaks coming out, trying to put a finger in to plug it. So again, we want to try to improve the passage of particularly the small fish between the lake and river at all flows, but also maintain the lake level. Again, to protect that near shore spawning habitat, but also we understand that there's city backup drinking water infrastructure that needs to have a certain level to reach and to function. And then there's property boundaries that if the worst case scenario, we don't do anything about it, it's going to continue to fail. It might not be catastrophic, but over time, it will no longer maintain the lake levels. We'll see more of mud flats. Eyak Lake is about 10 feet deep on average. It's not very deep. So this weir is holding it as a lake. It would not quite be that without something to control the water levels. Secondarily, this infrastructure in the middle of the weir was designed for sport fishing and a boat slot. So we are, taking boat passage into consideration. It's not possible at all flows in the current way it's was built, and we're not going to improve the fish passage to make it available at all flows, but it will be safer at most flows like it is now. There's also been interest in, making it safer for recreational fishing, and that has not been the primary focus of our outcome at this time. For a few reasons. And then fishery monitoring, there has been an interest by Native Village of Eyak Fish and Game and the Science Center to instrument the new structure that goes in so that we can better monitor this population. And one thing I failed to mention, that it used to be called Cordova's $1 million lake, but now it's a multi-million-dollar lake because the ex-vessel value of sockeye and coho from the lake is estimated by Fish and Game between $2 and $3 million for the commercial fishery alone. But it's not an easy project. There's a lot of different competing goals. And because of this complex ownership or not having an owner right now, we want to make a design that's going to be very low maintenance or no maintenance. Constructability, we're literally between a rock and a hard place. So we've got a highway, a bridge, cliffs, and then, the lake itself. We've got major utilities that are connecting to the airport. And there's going to be the bridge is up for construction. So there's going to be that project that DOT is working on and trying to achieve. And then we certainly want to, not change any of the current lake levels or river levels. And so again, because of these challenges, we're trying to be proactive and work through these challenges versus a failure that results in a rushed effort and fewer resources to make something happen. And so there's a lot more on our website about the actual design, and that's not my goal of being here. And I gave a presentation to the community, maybe it was last week, maybe it was 2 weeks ago. It's all blurring together. But there's a lot of recording with our engineer if you do want to learn more about the design. But we've been working on this since 2020 when we were able to recruit, take some Forest Service funding and leverage it against our partners and recruit some outside funding to get preliminary investigations done, which gave us a concept that we could pitch to the trustee council. And that was awarded to get us launched into our design effort and partial construction funding. And then the bipartisan infrastructure law was passed that had a lot of funding earmarked for fish passage. And so we were able to work with our partners at the EAC Corporation to pursue and get another $3.5 million to make a very robust construction budget. We had a whole year of data collection by our engineers and have been going through a design process where we started with 15. Some of our partners didn't like it. And so we've had a 20% design check-in to try something different. And what that is, the main things that you can change are the height of the weir and the location of the weir. And then what our goal is to do is to create a new weir structure that then take the bottom of the river and make it a rocky ramp to meet the top of the weir. And so this is the current alignment you can see, but then this is the proposed new alignment. And this basically, with all the data that they had, they could develop a model of the existing conditions and then run their model, compare it to the real data and see, okay, this model is showing us what we actually see. Now we're going to start to change the weir. Let's see what happens when we make it taller, when we move it over here, so they could change all these parameters in the model to then understand how a new structure would react in the same flow conditions based on being able to get a model that proves what we're actually seeing in the current situation. And so here are some of the other parts of the design process, but again, or design set, I don't want to spend too much time on this. But essentially you have that, I already showed you the alignment, but this red line here kind of shows that the top of the weir is not at one level. And so you have a low flow channel. You have relief in the middle to have constant water flowing over. And then this low flow channel is designed, they engineer the heck out of habitat features to be able to make it deep enough and have boulders in place for, like, if there's a little bit amount of water, it can rush through the place that it's able to go to. And so having boulders in place that allow for resting refuges is for fish that are moving through. That's what is going on this side over here.
So that creates kind of some step pools.
A little bit like step pools, but I mean, it's going to be just like a channel that has like boulders in it. There's going to be rocks everywhere, but they're not going to be as roughened in the rest of this area in these other parts here. But we have to stop progress right now because we can't get our permits completed until we have an owner. And so right now, the clock is ticking. We have the funding to be able to do the construction. The hope is that we could go to construction. The window is based on fish activity, and because there's there's 11 different species of fish in Eak Lake, multiple anadromous moving between the habitats. The time of year that you can do the work is limited. The fish window is what we call it. And so this fish window that we would work in Eak Lake also has to be timed with low water, which we know in the fall is not the case. And so we're looking at like January through April construction to try to get it done before things start out migrating from the lake. And so, but if we want to try to be going to construction in January 2025, we need to have our permits submitted, especially for floodplain stuff by the beginning of May. The good news is that when we tried bottom up, not so powerful, but when we connected with Representative Stutes, she was quick to connect with commissioners of DNR, DOT, and Fish and Game to talk about, the state built this, that entity no longer exists, like what, role can we play? And I will be honest that one of the questions that came back is like, well, what's the city going to do about it? And so we've said, well, the city doesn't have an engineer on staff. And so we feel like for as long as the inspection is in place, that perhaps the state could play that role because they have a inspection cycle for looking at the bridge where an engineer comes to evaluate the bridge and maybe they could evaluate the weir. Again, we've built it so that very low maintenance. It's all very anchored in and has been through a lot of test runs and a lot of different flow scenarios to make sure it would stay in place. And maybe like another 64 earthquake would, it might not stand that, but at the same time, we probably are going to have greater problems again than the weir itself. And so anyway, I got an update from my contact at DOT today, who was like, "Oh, we're working on it and we're talking about it." So there's hope that they will come up with an agreement. I see a few scenarios, and I come into you in hopes that you have other ideas or whatnot as well. Perhaps if, I guess the one thing I left out is that we have partners like Fish and Wildlife Service and NOAA and the Forest Service who have access to resources like funding to be able to help if we were to need to do some maintenance. They've even been, like, we've been discussing trying to have like the first 3 years, if we need to go back and do tweaking some equipment or some funding for heavy equipment to be able to fine tune things once the water is reintroduced to the project. But we still just need someone to own it. And so one scenario might be if we can get the state to finalize who's going to own it there, perhaps the city would be willing to offer to be the local partner that helps to convene the other partners who can bring the funding and the expertise to problem solve. I mean, obviously the watershed project will be there, but a city will likely last a lot longer than our organization. Maybe we'll put ourselves out of business when we have an intact watershed, but I feel like, that's why I'm asking the city to consider maybe a role like that. And if the city were to follow up with the state to say that, yes, we would be this local partner, but we need you to have the engineers to do the inspections. That would be one scenario. Or if we want this to happen really fast, maybe the city would consider like, yes, let's own it. What does it take to own it? And we could move even like get going with our permits and not wait for the state to stop passing the hot potato around. So that's the main gist of what I wanted to come tonight with. And yeah.
I was just gonna say, I'm wondering what people would think about trying to schedule a work session to talk about this in a little more detail, or we could add it to our agenda somewhere later tonight under like new business or something, but it just seems like it could benefit from a little bit of focused discussions, I'm thinking. I don't know. Yeah.
I would agree.
I mean, I think we're gonna want to dig into it and ask some questions, and maybe we could have a lunchtime meeting. I'm not saying it has to go for hours and hours, but anyway, there's a suggestion. We can talk about it in our pending agenda if you want. I think there's a lot to talk about. Yeah.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? I think we do have on this is our webpage. Here's the QR code that takes you to the EAC Lake project page. This has been updated since then. This is just an old screenshot of the website. But you can find the recordings and learn more about the design and the, evaluation that went into that. And this is also where I linked the files. You have it in your packet. That's right. Because it's in the memo there.
Yeah.
Are there any
Mr. Mayor?
questions? Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I guess I would need to know what, if the city were to take ownership, what are the ramifications for the city? Liabilities, maintenance, cost, if this thing did fail with earthquake, would we be liable? What would the ramifications be of taking ownership?
Yeah, like there would be, like, if there was an earthquake and something needed to be done, then we would need to, like, I would imagine convening partners like NOAA and Fish and Wildlife Service, and we could probably get some agencies to sign on to a MOA or something that could have a unique agreement to the weir that, ties in and commits those partners to being a part of the conversation because, they have committed to they can't guarantee the funding because that's always on a annual cycle, but they are intent on helping to make this last by paying now for a very expensive design intended to have very low maintenance to little maintenance. And so it would, convening those partners would be one thing. I don't think I don't anticipate that there would be a regular need for maintenance of any regard. I don't know, if someone were to hurt themselves in the weir now, what happens? And so I don't have an answer to that. They're good questions,
Mr. Mayor.
and I get that, and that's why nobody wants to own it.
I guess I would just, if we do a work session, that's what I'd like presented is what does it mean? I mean, that's the simplest way. What does it mean for the city to own it?
Mhm.
I think if you can come to us with maybe a real breakdown of what that means, that would be helpful.
Okay.
So,
And
what-
for my part, if we're gonna have
Right.
that conversation, I'd like to hear from our legal team also at that time.
not against it. I just want to make sure we're being prudent before we take it on. That's all.
No, I agree. I mean, I've been pitching and pushing the state hard. And so, I mean, I feel like they are more set to do it, but they can keep batting this around while we keep losing lake levels and while we are losing our funding timeline that we
Right.
have in hand. And so I like, maybe that would be a reason there is to be able to take the control. But I think the legal standpoint would be interesting. We have like our Forest Service partners, Fish and Wildlife Service, fishing, they've been sending it to all their legal departments. Small nonprofit, we don't have legal staff on hand. I did reach out to Sam to ask about if there was lobbyist or legal support to be able to help review and answer some of these questions. But I'll certainly ask our team to pull together what we can and maybe bring in some of them to the conversation to share thoughts on.
Yeah. And I would say definitely we would want some kind of MOU with some of these partners. I mean, if the
Yeah.
underlying land is
Yeah.
DNR land. No,
Yep.
DNR doesn't want it, but they do things like they issue permits for the float plane docks on the lake and they issue,
Yeah.
you know, they own state land, they own the land that the ski hill operates on. So it's not completely unfamiliar to them. They just would prefer not to take on
Right.
another thing in their portfolio. So
Yeah.
if we're going to do it, we should say, and you will be our ready and willing partner, you know? So.
And it might be worth trying the like, well, we don't have the capacity to own it, but we could play a role in order to help spur state partners. That was my first thought. I just felt like it didn't hurt to say, or you could own it. I wasn't coming here just like with that being the main mission. I just am like.
Yep.
Yeah, and I don't know what's gonna get the best traction. And this is something I do know that if property lines were to be changing or if there were changes to habitat or whatever, that it would be the state and the city who's probably going to get the most phone calls. And so I just wanted to make sure that I was engaged in a conversation with the city as well I have been working with staff, but for you all as well to understand some of the implications and challenges that we're facing getting this to the finish line.
And you have the funding for construction in hand?
In hand, yeah.
Committed? So, and it's like 11 million, is that what I saw?
Yeah, well, I think we have about, we have 7 million for sure for the construction and depending on design and some of the other things that were built into the budget that might fall different.
Yeah.
Come out in different cost categories. So, but yeah, I mean, that's enough to cover our target
Cool.
construction.
Seems like it would be a great resource to reestablish a more natural channel, more natural stream conditions. Yeah, I mean, for the benefit of the sockeye stocks in the lake. Sockeye and coho.
And pinks and chum. And I think they're all in there, aren't they?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Not all of them are spawning, but they are all moving in and out of.
I know my dog's definitely rolled in pinks.
Jumbo dollies in there too.
And still some cutthroat.
Yeah.
They're just barely hanging on. Maybe this project will help bring them back up.
Any other questions for Kate?
Well, I appreciate
Thank
the
you.
interest in talking further. So give me a little bit of heads up so I can tap in some other partners and resources to the conversation. And yeah, thanks again for your time.
Yeah, thank you,
Thanks.
Kate.
Yeah.
Yep.
What I need to do here. You need to see what else do you usually look at?
The
Zoom.
screen.
Whoops, the other Zoom screen.
It's behind there. I think we just shrunk.
There we go.
Thank you. Thanks, Kate.
Okay, next up on our agenda is Charlotte Westing from ADF&G on the bear safety. as the bears are waking up.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. I'm Charlotte Westing. Sam asked me to come and speak to you tonight. I'm the local wildlife area biologist for the Alaska Department of Fish and Game. And right now the bears are starting to wake up a little bit, still not much of an issue. Most of them are still asleep, but it's a good time to talk about what we do, how we do it, how we can work together to keep our town as safe as possible. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about some myths about bear biology, and then I'm going to explain how we handle bears in this town, and then and get into some of the specifics about scenarios, how we get to each different type of way of handling bears in town, and then I'll get into some conflict prevention. So just to start off, I've been here about 11 years now. I came here because this town is beautiful. There's so much going on naturally, and it's a fascinating place to live and work. And so bears are part of that. And I accept that. I think most of us accept that bears are part of our landscape. And we're lucky because our resources are really abundant in most years. And so we have lots of years where bears just aren't a problem in town. And so, it's about 1 out of every 3 years that we have no issues whatsoever. I might not even have any bear calls that year. But some years we have more trouble. And what people tend to think is going on is they think, oh, the bear population is high. There's lots of bears in town. The bear population is high. Well, there's been a variety of different projects that have shown that there's no correlation between the number of bear conflicts in urban settings and the population size that you're dealing with. What's more likely to be going on is natural food resource constriction, and bears come into urban environments for food subsidy. And so the best thing we can do is make that food as inaccessible as possible. Bears are always going to flit in and out of our neighborhoods because of where we live. Most of us don't have fences. Our yards back right up against natural landscapes where there are berries, fish, and the problem is that if our behavior makes a bear want to stay and get real comfortable eating things that they're just not designed to eat. So bears are around us all the time, whether we see them or not. And that's one problem I really have with the Bear Watch Facebook page is all of a sudden it has elevated the consciousness that everyone has about every bear that's in town, where previously you wouldn't really have a reason to talk about the bear that you saw in the morning, except maybe to your neighbor because it is pertinent to them, but you had no way to broadcast the information about every bear in town. So what this has done, I think, is raise the overall level of anxiety that people have when they feel like they know about every bear that's in town. And it's also not making anyone any safer because we should all conduct ourselves in a way as if a bear has been in our neighborhood every night, regardless of whether or not we know that there has been one there. Our bear project, where we captured over almost 100 bears, resulted in thousands of images, and many of those were just minutes before we walked into a set. And oftentimes, shortly after we were gone, they were right back to that area. They're really good at disappearing into the shadows and can just go unnoticed really pretty easily. Bears obviously don't perceive our property lines. So they don't know that a salmonberry bush in your yard is your salmonberry bush. They see it as just any other salmonberry bush that they could access at any other time. But when they start getting into non-natural food sources, when they start hitting dumpsters and trash cans and getting in poultry, then they start to adopt a pattern of bad behavior. They have a great memory, and in the natural landscape, they use that to map out places that have delivered good food resources to them. Well, they're going to do that in our towns too. So when they get compensated for being in a neighborhood, now they add that to a circuit, and they might check that every night until it stops delivering. And even after it stops delivering, they're going to keep going and trying to check it out. Some years what we have happen, and 2 years ago, we really saw this, actually the last 2 summers, I think we saw it, where the spring conditions that we had made it to where green up happened at lower elevations way earlier than it happened at the high elevations, and the berries came on low and strong, but never maybe came on in the higher elevations. And what we ended up with was a concentration of bears in lower areas, which happens to be where all our towns are. So we had lots of problems in Cordova, Valdez, Whittier, and it was probably a result of just some of these weird spring conditions where we have, late and lingering snow at higher elevations, or in some years, there's a lot of research going on into what causes berry crop failure. Sometimes it's these weird late snows that just happen after maybe even plants have started to flower. So there's a variety of different things that can lead to some natural food shortage. And one of the things that will probably come from our work in Prince William Sound is a better understanding of the fact that even though it seems like black bears have a million types of things that they could eat, they actually do experience periods of food stress. And 2018, which is the year of the bear, was probably our best example of that. So one myth I'd like to dispel is that when bears find communities, they can never go back to being a wild bear. I hear people say all the time, once a bad bear, always a bad bear. And people talk about town bears as if there are two different kinds of bears. There's wild bears and there's town bears. And this just simply isn't the way things work. There's a lot of good data coming out of Durango. Dr. Heather Johnson, she found that bears used urban foods in some years, and those were the years where they measured the lowest levels of natural food abundance. And then when natural foods became abundant again, they went right back to using their natural areas, and they didn't spend time in town at all. There's some other good studies coming out of North Carolina that show very similar things. Our bear project found bears in the very bad bear year expanded their home ranges sometimes 10 times over, searching for food resources, and then the next year went right back to their normal home range use patterns. The other thing we found in 2018 is a couple of the bears that were killed in town were very old. 15, 19 years old. So they had been living in proximity to our town without causing any problems for a pretty long time. But that year was just too much, and they got themselves in trouble. Second myth is that this problem is unique to Cordova. There are many places with a lot more people, and even, Anchorage, for example, 300,000 people, and both brown and black bears in town periodically. But other places like the Tahoe Basin of Nevada and California, it's about 40,000 people. Juneau, 33,000 people. Durango, almost 20,000. Asheville, North Carolina has about 90,000 people, and they've had collared bears that denned in the downtown area. And then Canmore, Alberta, there's more than 15,000 people there. So lots of communities are dealing with bears in urban areas and are far farther along than we are on our trash management. And bears are not inherently a threat. Most of them want to get away from humans as quickly as they can. And we want to keep it that way. We want to keep them from getting so comfortable that they stop acting like a normal bear. But bears can hurt people, and it's not a risk that we take lightly. It's surprisingly rare, though, considering how many places have bears and living very closely. In some places, they're denning underneath people's houses. I've never seen that happen here, but the bears have a pretty good track record for not hurting people. It certainly happens sometimes, but statistically, it's still very rare. And all of these communities take a similar approach, which is primarily focusing on eliminating attractants. So now I'll explain a little bit how our local response works. We work as a team, so no decision is made by any one entity. We have the Alaska Wildlife Troopers, which has 2 officers. Right now, one of those positions is vacant, but Officer Cassandra Hychek is working for the Alaska Wildlife Troopers. I'm, of course, the biologist at Fish and Game. Then our city police department is tremendously helpful to us because we have numerous officers there with lots of great training that can be useful. And we also have the 24-hour dispatch. So that's the easiest way for the public to get help if they need it. We also work closely with the refuse department, Sam Greenwood and Aaron Milma. And then the law enforcement officer for the U.S. Forest Service, Andy Morse, also provides assistance whenever he can. Most of the people in that group have kids and all live in these areas where there are a lot of bear activity. My kids walk to school every day. My kids play in the neighborhood that has some of the most bear calls in town. So we are making these decisions really collectively thinking about what is best for this community, and we all are heavily invested in it. And so it takes any one person, if any one person says uncle, anyone says a bear has gone too far, it's over for that bear. And that has always been the approach that we've taken. We never argue about it. We never have a discussion any further. Once someone says that bear is making me really uncomfortable, I think it's unsafe, that bear's got a hit on it. But most of the time, we are all in agreement that this bear is not a risk at this time, but we're having constant conversation about it. We relay all of our calls. So if anyone calls Fish and Game but doesn't call the PD, I still tell the PD about that bear call so that they can keep a comprehensive record of all the calls we get. Any calls that come into the Forest Service go to the city PD, et cetera. So that way we have a clearinghouse, and that actually allows me to also map the hotspots in town for bear activity and kind of tell where some of our problem areas are. So we talk numerous times, sometimes numerous times a day, but we talk regularly. Anytime something's going on, we're working together as a team to make sure we're all on the same page. So when do we shoot a bear? Because this is usually the thing that comes up is people say there's bears in towns, and I don't understand why people aren't shooting them. Well, as I mentioned, at any point, if any one of us thinks that a bear is presenting a danger, I put out a hit on that bear. And what we're often looking for is some kind of distinguishing characteristic that will tell us that we have the right bear. Sometimes it's a notch in the ear, sometimes it's a color pattern on the chest. We look for things that will allow us to be able to identify that. The problem is that shooting in an urban setting is not something that any of us take lightly. Officers don't want to discharge a firearm unless someone's going to die if they don't do it. And that is rarely the case. And so oftentimes bears create an attraction. People want to come and watch what's going on. They want to take videos of what's going on. And now our officers are worried about bystanders and potentially and keeping everyone safe. People moving around, it's problematic enough to try to shoot in an urban setting, but now you've got people that could squirt out from any corner. And it is rare that the firearm doesn't present a greater risk itself than the bear. The bear is often not the most dangerous thing in that setting. And sometimes the round that gets fired off at a bear does not only hit that it's intended target. We had an example of that when someone shot a bear in the cannery, passed through a wall, and it hit a person back in 2001. So it's been a while since that's happened in Cordova, but it is a real risk. And it's something that we all take very seriously. So then the question I often get is, why don't you just come and trap the bear? They used to trap bears. I don't understand why you're not coming and trapping the bear. When a bear is trapped, it is basically just to kill it in a more safe fashion. The reason for this is that we know that moving bears leads to the same outcome for the bear. They have a very high likelihood of coming back to where they were captured. So it's expensive. It's very stressful for the bear. And there's numerous examples of when we've done it, moved bears and had them come right back. And so if we trap a bear, it is to kill that bear. Hazing is something that we usually don't do. Sometimes we'll do it when all the attractants have been secured and we just feel like we need to give that bear a bad experience to try to keep them from maintaining that location and its circuit of where it goes. But it's also hard to get to be successful and stressful for the bear. If we get to that point, we often are really thinking hard about a lethal round. And there's often lots of bystanders around. Less than lethal rounds is what we call the rounds we would use, like rubber bullets or bean bags. We call them less than lethal because we can still kill bears with them. They can be very unpredictable and erratic because they don't come out of the gun with very much force. And so they can be unpredictable and erratic. And then we've got a bunch of bystanders around that could potentially get hurt. So that's how we make some of the decisions about handling bear calls. So now I'll talk a little bit about what citizens can do. Obviously, the first thing is to make your neighborhood unattractive for bears. So talking to your neighbors, brainstorming ways that you can take care of trash and support each other. But if you see, in your community, people not storing their food properly, not storing their waste properly, and it's having an impact on your life, like work together, see what needs to happen. Maybe that person is having trouble handling their trash properly. Use electric fences to protect poultry. Last year we did a proactive poultry panel, I called it, because I love alliteration, and had some really successful electric fence users come, and it just explained what they've learned through the use of that technology to people who were considering rebuilding their flocks, since so many people lost chickens in 2022. Obviously, DLP law exists. That stands for Defense of Life and Property Law. And so that we are all protected legally if you need to kill a bear in defense of your life or property. It's just really important that people understand what the rules are and when it's appropriate. It's not appropriate in every circumstance, but it exists to protect you. So I encourage people to know Defense of Life and Property Law, and if they have questions about that, they can call me and I will explain. Anybody on the bear, our bear response team can explain that to you. I encourage people to communicate about bear concerns in a productive way. So if you see a bear and it's an immediate public safety risk, call 911. We'll get help coming to you right away. If you see a bear and it's acting normally, but you're concerned that it's too comfortable in your area, or you just think someone should know, call Fish and Game. Tell me about it. I would love to know that way and not hear, in 2 years ago when I came in, there was a lot of people that were really upset about bears in town, but we had not received a single call at Fish and Game. So if you're worried about it, talk to me and we can come up with some ideas for how to fix the problem. The Facebook conversation is just not productive. I think it overall raises the level of anxiety that people have without really being productive at helping people be safe. And I don't have access to it. I can't look at it when I'm at work, and I'm sure as heck not going to go home and subject myself to that after my work hours. So those are the things that, so the other thing is supporting local law enforcement. So acknowledging that we live in a litigious society and that shooting in communities is an extreme risk. So don't expect and take that so flippantly, talking about officers shooting bears in our community. Officers are very sensitive to concerns about excessive use of force too. So if you're in a situation where there's a bear and you would like to watch, I encourage you all to resist the urge to do that. Vacate the scene. It will allow the officers to secure the situation and do their jobs. Best thing we can all do is prevent officers from being there in the first place by removing those attractants, because those officers want to spend time working on things. They want to spend less time chasing bears and more time fighting crime and doing things that are really impactful for our community in a positive way. Support the city's effort to secure trash. So instead of trying to keep trash outside, use the Baylor's generous hours. A lot of people will build little wooden structures to store a trash bin in or whatever, but in this climate, those structures can't last very long. And so sometimes people will call me and they're outraged a bear has ripped into their little storage, bin. And I'm like, well, when did you build that bin? Oh, 15 years ago. I'm like, well, it's made out of plywood. And this is Cordova. And it is no longer very strong. And so, yeah, instead of even trying to keep it outside, consider using the Baylor's generous hours. And also just keep the dialogue about trash and bears constructive. So instead of complaining about heavy trash lids, find innovative ways to make them work. The AC has a pulley system for their lids. I've seen step stools engaged. I've seen prop sticks. And talk to people if you have ideas about how to make it work. But don't just, these lids are so heavy. So what council can do? Council can support law enforcement on their aversion to shooting in town and support them whenever trash tickets are written. Trash tickets are a tool to just get people to take these things seriously. support the refuse department and their recommendations on best practices, improving trash security, so more bear-resistant lids being deployed, and considering that some parts of town may just be incompatible with residential pickup. So last year, there was some experimentation done by the refuse department in moving some of the trailer courts, which were hot spots for bear activity, away from residential pickup and onto secured bear-resistant dumpsters. And I have never seen such perfect compliance with the dumpsters. Every time I run by those trailer courts, lock bars up, and everything is just as it should be. And our bear problems in the trailer courts where that went into place came to a screeching halt. The city tightened up the city code last year about when trash can be put out, and that gives our officers an easier way to talk with people about their trash compliance. And then another option is to require electric fences for poultry within city limits. I still prefer the voluntary compliance route. And I really like having these proactive conversations with people about how this can work. But I'd really like to encourage anyone that owns chickens or any kind of poultry in town to consider getting an electric fence and learning how to use it well. And so then the council can also just distribute these talking points about what they can do. So I will now take any questions you've got.
Questions, anybody?
No, I don't have a question, but I hope everybody will watch this on YouTube and listen to Charlotte. And I'll use social media to post that you talked to us to watch YouTube.
Cool. And I do have my recommendations on conflict prevention posted or printed here. And then I brought some bumper stickers and some refrigerator magnets that have a little checklist about bear safety. I am going to give a bear safety talk tomorrow and the next day to the refuse department for the city. And there's like almost 40 people signed up for that. So I'll be doing some bear safety for that. And I'm happy to do more talks if people want more information.
So I have two questions. One is, I'm thinking that for the electric fences around chicken coops, you probably have some resources or you could point to some good examples. So
Yeah.
that's something we can tell people, like if you're thinking about getting a system, talk about it. Okay.
Yeah. We have a lot of really great materials on the Fish and Game website, including all the pros and cons, all the things to think about, places in Alaska where you can buy the materials that you need, estimated costs. And then we have local people in town that have really been using them successfully and that can speak to what works here, what doesn't work here, those kinds of things. So yes, I can definitely connect the dots for people on that.
And then for the dumpsters, so some of our city dumpsters have the lock bars, but not all of them? Or do we know what percentage?
I can answer that. I don't know what the percentage is, but we're working towards getting them all with the lock bars, and we put on a new, I don't know, they call it a lock. It's a place where you can put a carabiner
Cotter pin
or something to,
Yeah.
so it's just that they can't
Yeah.
just flip it.
Right.
So I think the last time I spoke with Aaron, they were waiting, they have put a mini on and they are waiting for a few more to come. The dumpsters should be in that Heaney trailer court around May 1st. They, of course, put them in snow dumps. So we might even go and clear some out if it looks like we can't get them in there. And then we're trying to work with one other trailer court to
Well,
support it.
yeah, and
Yeah.
the processors. I went running out Orca Road last fall. Went past Cop River Seafoods, saw some trash up when I was out running, went up to the dumpster, lifted it up just till it was heavy. And I lifted up and I stuffed my trash and I was like, oh, there's something moving in there. And I stepped back and sure enough, little bear pops up, lifts the lid with his head, hooks an arm, hooks a leg, clambers out, looks at me, goes off across the road.
And the bar wasn't on.
But it had a lock bar on it. It wasn't.
What was it up?
No,
Yeah.
yeah. And then there was
There.
all this trash on the side of the road for a couple days and somebody finally called them, I think, and they went and picked it up. But I thought, 2 minutes to get out, lock the bar
Mm.
prevents the possibility of a bear incident and having to go back and spend 20 minutes picking up all the trash.
So there's a couple of different things going on there. One is getting people to use a dumpster as it's intended. I did though go this over this last year and surveyed the dumpsters just to see what the numbers were. And we were at about 50%, getting close to 50% that have metal lids. And then about 25% that had the lock bar. And so those, what we end up with without the lock bar is you basically have a dumpster that is both heavy and hard to use and also not bear resistant because a bear can just do that really easily. So it's great to hear that they're continuing to work on constructing more lock bars because what we've ended up with these last few years is just a whack-a-mole situation where we take a fully bear resistant dumpster with a lock bar from a place where maybe it was needed for a while and put it in the new place that is the new problem. But the old problem, that bear's probably still got that circuit. It's just not being compensated there. So now that there's maybe an unsecure one where the resistant one was, we're just shifting the problem around. So yes, it would be great to get more, at the very least, more lock bars. And I'd love to ultimately get us to, yeah, my numbers here, 47% had metal flat lids, and then another 10% had the sliding doors. So yeah, that's 57% that were, well, metal, and the remainder were plastic of the 68 dumpsters, which may not have been all of them, but those were all the ones that we could find.
Are you working with the refuse department regarding the landfill situation at all?
Yes. So DEC is also involved because they come in and inspect the landfill and come up with recommendations for what they want to see. And so, ideally, I would like to see an inaccessible landfill for bears, similar to what they have in Kodiak and some other communities throughout Alaska. Problem is that, well, and Sam could explain this better, but basically it's a question of how much you contain and then the expense of containment, because you can't just put up electric fence around something like this, because as soon as a plastic bag blows up against it, it can ground it out. It's no longer an electric fence. It's just 3 strands of wire or however many strands of wire. So there has to be some level of containment that prevents that from happening. It has to have constant maintenance. It's also, there's not power out there. So there's logistical challenges to overcome, and then the cost. So I always say the cost of that fencing is probably less than, if someone gets hurt and there's a lawsuit, that will be more expensive. But yeah, those are the complexities, and I'm involved with those conversations, but it comes down to the money, and I can't contribute anything there.
Yeah, we've been, there's a company out of Canada and we have been talking with them a little bit. And I mean, just to fence our entire landfill, I mean, it's 60 acres. It's not like it's, 10 by 10s. It's a lot of work. So we've been talking to them about maybe doing the active actually cells and keeping it into the forward parts that we're gonna eventually move into. And instead of electric, doing a, what metal fence, what do I want to call that? Chain link fence that it goes up and then also is buried out from it. So if they start to dig, they'll hit that chain link. They have had success with that. It's a little bit less maintenance. I think the electric fence for us out there would be really difficult. I mean, it could be a twig, it could be a piece of grass. There is trash that blows across there, so it would be a lot of maintenance. So we're looking into that. We've got some price quotes from them. We've put into a couple places to see if we can get some funding for it. But, it's a tough one for a lot of places to want to fund.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's well into the hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it.
I did a visit with Aaron and took a tour of the landfill in that area and was just watching them dump the local active cell, and was just the number of bears around there. It's just looking for an incident.
There's numerous generations of sows with cubs at this point.
Yeah.
At one point, at any one point, you see 15 bears.
Yeah.
And we have had bears die from a trash bazaar, basically, like an obstruction of garbage or poisoning. I'm not sure. I didn't necropsy, but we've had bears die that we know about, and then surely bears die that we don't know about. And you can find bear scats with plastic in them very far from the landfill. So
Yeah.
it's
That
definitely
whole area is
impactful.
covered. That I think was the most impressive thing for me, was just how far out that went and how many bears there were there.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, it does seem like for the dump, a physical barrier is really probably the only thing. Just my experience, and probably many people's experience, yours too, with electric fencing. If they want to get through an electric fence, they seem to be able to do that just fine. Push their way through if they're really eager to get in. I want to go back to kind of city management and the things that you've been doing. I really appreciate you taking all the energy and time to educate the public on what's really a concern and what's not. That's huge. And I think dispelling a lot of the myths that people tend to spread around, and the bear watch, I think, is just pure entertainment. Yeah, people's cams up they have up on their homes, and more of an entertainment than good information probably getting spread around. I'm curious about things that are more seasonal though. So fish cleaning stations like the one we have over by the Science Center. I know that got closed down last year for a period of time because of bear activity. What are your thoughts on those types of things?
Sure. I really love the new location of the cleaning station. Previously where it was located, the fish would get high and dry in the chute, and then also it wouldn't reach the water. And so where the cleaning station is now is better because it gets it out to the water and it can clear it out from that area. So that deals with that technical problem. But now you have the human component of, like, sometimes people think it's fun to just put their halibut carcasses out and let the birds pick on them. Or sometimes we have fishermen literally trying to feed bears. We had fishermen holding a salmon in front of a bear earlier in that season. And so basically, I'm fine with that cleaning station the way that's set up. The conversations that we had last year were about the fact that maybe, since that's a city provided cleaning station, it just they need to have personnel come and just check it out and make sure everything is tidy once or twice a day. And if that happens, then maybe everything's cool. But when there's really high levels of usage and some irresponsible behavior, it definitely can become a hotspot for activity. And when that happens, we can't have a place where then people are going with the intent of finding bears and interacting with bears because they're reliably coming there.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Go ahead, Ken.
I guess I just have a question. What would be the cost to move to 100% bear-proof dumpsters? Have we calculated that?
I would have to talk to Aaron. I don't know off the top of my head. I know we're moving there. That's our end goal. It costs a lot for those metal dumpsters. So the dumpsters are metal, the lids are metal. They have to retrofit them when they get here. And so it does cost a lot to make them happen. But we also get a lot of complaints about the heavy lids. And I think at this point, we're just gonna move to all metal lids.
Yeah, just my personal experience. I live in a neighborhood that used to be a hot spot. As soon as, I used to call and complain about it all the time and have to pick up a lot of garbage. And then I think, you guys finally got to be the squeaky wheel enough where we got a bear-proof dumpster, and it was like light switch off. I have not had any issues since, for like maybe once. And it's been 3 years now. So where I used to have to pick up garbage weekly, it's once in 3 years. It's really incredible how much those lids make a difference.
So I would make one correction, which is there's no such thing as a bear-proof lid. I never refer to that because bears are brilliant and they find ways to get into things. So I would call at best a bear-resistant lid. The lids we're using with the flat metal that are heavy, that is a cost savings that the city is using. When you can get very sexy doors that have slides and all kinds of different configurations. that are easier for people to use, but they are more expensive. So right now, without the lock bars, we have lids that are just heavy and not bear resistant. And so if they're heavy but bear resistant, I think people can live with that. Ideally, in a perfect world, we'd have lids that were convenient, not heavy, and bear resistant. And the other thing those provide is they restrict people from putting items that are inappropriate to go in a dumpster in them, like pieces of furniture and construction materials and things like that, which I know has been a problem for the city in the past. And then a third point I would make is that one of the other things I looked at when we canvassed dumpsters this summer is the condition. And so I think people assume that the bear resist, like metal dumpsters would be very durable against wear and tear, but the process of dumping them is, it's impactful on them. So we had 80% that were in good repair, but 10% that were bent, damaged, but functioning. And then like 2% that were broken or missing parts. So there is going to be, you know, some cost to just like keeping them in place. They're not something that is, you know, they get bent, they need fixed, they require work. So
Yeah, we have to replace every year. I mean, we replace a certain amount every year.
Mhm.
Corrosion, rust, heat up. How many drives are
Just
just
have a
into?
question as far as cost savings and ease of opening. Is there any bear resistant success with having plastic lids and bar?
no, I don't know. A bear can sit on top of a plastic lid, collapse it into the dumpster, have his smorgasbord pop right out. In Whittier, they have plastic lids that are reinforced with metal, so they have some like infrastructure to them.
Sure.
And I see bears regularly just peel those
Oh.
back like it's a can of tuna. So I hate those dumpsters in Whittier, but that's why they use them there, is because they're cheaper
Sure.
and they're lighter to use, but I do not see them as an improvement.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you said we have some of the sliding door dumpsters in town that you're referring
Yeah, but
to?
nobody likes.
There are a few. People hated those too.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's
For
some at the
different
harbor. They're usually the bigger ones.
Okay.
And I don't. Yeah, there's a lot of people who really dislike those as well.
And that's a challenge, right? Is that any dumpster that's harder for a bear to access is going to be harder for a person to access. That's just, unless you put in the money to get the cat's meow, that's just going to be part of the challenge. But I encourage people to improvise solutions like AC. Man, I love their system. I don't know if you've driven back there, but they have pulley system. They hook the lid to their little carabiners. Then they just open it up, tie it off, toss all their rotten peaches or whatever they got going on in there, lower the pulley back down, unclip the beaners and lock bar, and it's good to go. So, you know, I've recommended things like that for some of these places, especially that service a lot of seniors and shorter people, that they can use, but it's going to require some proactiveness to make these work for folks. So.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Charlotte. We
Thank
appreciate your
you.
information and.
Thanks.
Great.
Take a magnet and a bumper sticker on your way out. Share it with
Wanna
a
leave some On
friend.
the table?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to audience comments regarding agenda items. Anybody? Member of public? Have anything to say? Okay, hearing none, then we'll move along to chairpersons and representatives of boards and commissions. Hospital board, school board. Any other boards? See anybody here? We don't have a student council report. So the consent calendar is before you.
I will call the roll on the consent calendar. Dave Zastro.
Yeah.
Sorry, do you see, you understand the consent
Yeah,
calendar?
yeah,
Yes,
nothing,
okay.
yeah.
Kristen Carpenter,
Yes.
Ken Jones.
Yes.
Casey Kinsman,
Yes.
Wendy Rainey,
Yes.
Tom Baylor,
Yes.
Kathy Sherman.
Yes.
Consent calendar is approved.
Okay, thank you. Approval
Oh,
of the minute.
Mayor,
Yeah, go ahead.
I guess I just have a quick question. Maybe the manager could answer it for the mobile food wagon that is gonna be renting space from Cordova Telephone. Does Cordova Telephone collect and pay taxes on renting that property?
I don't know the answer to that.
Yes. We could find out.
Yeah.
My assumption is they would, after our discussion the other night, that they would probably have to. So yeah, if we could look into that, thanks.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Good point. That takes us down to
You're approved,
consideration.
So you know. I just wanted Bree to know that she's good to go.
Okay, bids and proposal contracts, council action. Terminating the city manager employment agreement with Ellen Howarth. Page 30. There's a motion.
Mayor,
Yes.
I move to ratify the enactment of section 3D of the city manager employment agreement and place Helen Howard on 60 days notice of the termination of the agreement effective April
Yes.
2024.
I'll second it.
Move to second it to terminate the agreement with Helen Howarth as the city manager. I think the April 4th is the date that's the date I talked to her
Okay.
regarding it, so. Any comments, questions? This is
It's a roll call
roll
vote.
call vote.
So. An 8. Casey Kinsman,
Yes.
Dave Zastro,
Yes.
Ken Jones,
Yes.
Wendy Rainey,
Yes.
Tom Baylor,
Yes.
Kristen Carpenter,
Yes.
and Kathy Sherman.
With regrets, yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Yep, we certainly hope she recovers fully and.
No, that's why this.
Okay, council approval of the city manager employment agreement with Samantha Greenwood. There's a blank in there that we need to discuss. And any other items with the contract that we might,
So we have an executive session later to talk about this?
we can either do it now or later. There's two items though that the signature resolution
Oh,
has to be done after this as well. We can move those to the end. Or do it now. I don't believe it will take long.
Do our
It's your
executive
pleasure.
session now, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we wanted to just carry on, we can have a quick executive session.
Uh,
Not that many people, they can chat in the foyer for 2 minutes.
Sure.
I don't think it will take long.
I'm in favor of doing that, but Kristen.
well, I was just gonna say, I move we go into executive session, matters, the immediate knowledge of which would clearly have an adverse effect upon the finances of the city, which is to talk about the city manager company's terms.
And I second that.
Moved and seconded to go into executive session. This would just be council and the mayor.
Okay.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yeah, we need to pause the YouTubes.
Yeah. Yes, I would think so. Okay, so
Watching.
recess for a minute, yeah?
Even when they're off.
You go. I don't think you guys got a copy of this.
I did not.
I sent it by email at 5 o'clock.
Oh.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't
It's
check
okay.
my email.
Okay, I didn't expect you.
No. That's okay. You're doing beyond duty.
Give that to Casey.
We don't want to just mute it and it's still playing.
That's in your email too.
Okay, I did see this.
Wait, pause it. You have to restart it. Oh, yeah, that works.
He might have to call back in.
Like he was on.
I don't know if he was on his computer.
Yeah. Are we back?
I was just waiting. Is Tom on there?
Not yet.
Get Tom on there as soon as he shows up.
There he is. Okay.
Okay. Okay, we're back in regular session. We had a quick discussion on the manager's contract, and I think we're ready for a motion on item 9.
You gonna move?
Mayor,
Yes.
I move that we approve the contract for the city manager with an annualized salary of 160,000 with Samantha Greenwood for services as city manager for the community of Cordova, Alaska, effective today, April 17th, 2024.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on that?
I think it speaks for itself.
Yeah. Yeah, we can make comments later. Yeah, let's
Take the roll? Okay.
Yeah.
Casey Kinsman,
Yes.
Ken Jones,
Yes.
Kristen Carpenter,
Yes.
Dave Zastro,
Yes.
Tom Baylor,
Yes.
Kathy Sherman,
Yes.
and Wendy Rainey.
Hell, yes.
Our motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Sam, and we look forward to working with you. It's not oftentimes we get the opportunity to promote from within. And I think the opportunity is a good one this time, and
Thanks.
glad to have you on board.
Thanks. Forward to it.
Okay, reports of officers, the mayor's report. We met, there was a few of us that met with some of the NBE Health Center people here week or so ago. And basically they want to work on whatever we can work on together. They want to keep that communication going between the two of us on any projects we have or they have, where we can support each other as much as we can. But this meeting was mostly about healthcare, and they were trying to see where we were at, but we made it I think we made it abundantly clear to them that the ball was in their court. We're waiting for a proposal. We've been waiting for a proposal for years. And if they're ready to make a proposal, we're ready to accept,
Listen.
Yeah.
So they know that whether that's for a piece of property to build something on or take over something we have. So there's been, we've all been through, those of us who've been here for very long have been through 100 proposals, ideas, but nothing has ever been put in a proposal form. So I would expect that we would see something, they're just getting organized too with their new the new director. They have recently split the Elanca portion separate from NVE. So that it's kind of two organizations with kind of the way the council used to do it with the hospital, where half of the council was the hospital board. So half of their council is on the their health services board and the NVE.
And the tribal council.
Board, so they've got kind of two organizations, so. Anyway, we told them when we get a proposal, then we would likely involve
Something.
our health care board and everybody, but I think we made it pretty clear that any proposal should go to Sam first. And then Sam would decide distribution of that at that point in time. So, anyway, so there's that, went to the school board workshop. I think there's been a couple since our last meeting, but they met last night and they're still working on their budget and of course, every year they always seem to do better than their budget. They predict to be nothing in their general fund at the end of the year, and they always end up with a few, and that's for several reasons. They either can't hire staff or I think they do a pretty good job of limiting their expenses when they can. But they're still looking at, even with us, currently the legislature has a 680 BSA in theirs. Now the governor vetoed that the last time, but they're trying to get some of his things, and now the court threw another wrench in, if you've been paying attention. School, so they're gonna appeal that, but anyway, so he's got a lot of things to think about. But they're looking at pretty seriously not hiring a few of the teachers that they've thought about. It sounds like they are leaning towards pretty strongly keeping the sixth grade in the elementary school building. Be moving some classes around, maybe moving the library downstairs. But if they moved them to the high school, there's a bunch of programming things that they need to figure out. And they may plan on that. The problem is the elementary school. It's a problem. It's a good problem to have. But they've got, the elementary classes are all pretty good size. The smallest one is they're going into sixth grade next year, and that's 29 kids, and all of the others are above 30 kids for all the grades. So they're gonna have 2 classes next year for every grade, except I think they don't have any money to do 2 for the sixth grade next year, so they'll stick to 1, what they're looking at doing anyway. Anyway, they're looking at pretty seriously not hiring another math teacher, maybe not hiring a PE teacher, because Hamburger's retiring. Maybe not having food service, maybe not having any activities. So they may ask council. It appears that we can fund over the cap if it's for
Program.
Instructional. That's the word, instructional.
So they may come and ask us for money to run their food service program. And it's not, we don't pay the full cost of that. It's a portion of it. And then because we get reimbursed from the federal government, a lot of it. And there's some costs that they would have if they were gonna close it out for a year. They're saying, well, we don't want to get rid of our food service manager. So they would move them into a different position anyway. So just be aware they may come and ask for some additional funding to keep the food service going or to keep activities. It sounded like maybe there was enough money and activities to go through this year by moving some of the, put some of the swimming money in this one and some of this money in that one, and they might move some things around to do that. So they got a scholarship fund that they're gonna borrow from. They did borrow a little bit from this year, and they're gonna might borrow some again. So anyway, there's some pretty big issues there. They don't have the opportunity to raise money like we do, but they do have a little bit of opportunity there. So anyway, be aware that they may come and ask for more. They're by code, their budget is supposed to be to us by May 1st. I told them last night at the meeting that we had a meeting scheduled for May 1st, so it probably wouldn't be until we wouldn't review it till our second meeting anyway, so they might have another week or so to do it. So I think their next meeting, they're planning on doing a budget workshop 3rd or the 4th. It'll be advertised, I'm sure. And then they've got a meeting scheduled for the 8th. And then they would give us their information right after that, which may be, I don't know when we're gonna have our meetings. We're gonna talk about that later, but I told them as long as they're communicating with Susan on what's there and it was in time for her to get it in the packet, knew what was that we would try to work with that. And I don't think we don't have to approve it. Right, we got 30 days.
30 days,
Yeah.
yeah.
They have to submit it to the state by June 15th.
Right.
The other thing on that school budget is we have time as a council. We've already determined our June, July through December
Right.
budget for them, unless we decide to fund something extra like food service. They don't know what their funding is until get through the governor's vetoes, get through the legislature stuff, and then their counts in October. So by the time we do our budget, the middle of November, we will know pretty solidly what their
Ask is.
funding is and what their ask is. So
Just for 1 month.
anyway, that's the school and the NVE. I don't think there's anything else other than, working with Sam's contract, obviously, and we got all that worked out, so. Any questions for me? Okay, Sam?
I have just a few updates on things that have been going on. So this afternoon, Kevin and I met with the Bristol Bay engineer Norm just to go over the water line, raw water line at Orca. It's looking like late next fall before they'll even be getting there. They're coming both directions from Humpback Creek. So there's a lot of work to do before they even get close to Orca Lodge. Probably in October, I think is what they had talked about to help be out of the fishing season.
Sam, you want to use your mic?
Oh, geez.
Sorry.
Sorry, thank you. I'm surprised Tom didn't tell me. He's right. I didn't know she was talking. Finishing up the liability insurance, annual review. It's for the next year's, proposal to see what that's gonna cost. So that kind of would work in well with the insurance question on the weir. I can talk to the insurance lady's name is also Sam, so I can talk to her about that. We also, and I want to give a shout out to Melvin, who's like an amazing cat herder and training guru. He has done a lot of trainings, including what Charlotte was talking about earlier, the bear safety training. But all of that, when we put it all together, Cheryl got some, it's not called sexual harassment anymore, but can't remember the name. Training and how, supervision training. And so all that gives us a discount on our insurance when everybody participates in those things. So Malvin's done a great job of getting that. We started with doing that with Public Works and then we've just expanded it out. And Duncan has also done a lot for his shop. So all that's super helpful. We interviewed 2 applicants for the library director. Cheryl is out this week. We're going to pick that back up next week. Ashley and I have been calling references this week. The chief candidate is trying to secure housing. So he's looking, he's excited, but he wants a house. So we've been working with him. Cheryl's been helping him in some case. Cameron's crew has been trying to help as well. So I've been working with the Happy Finance crew, and we've been working on getting things caught up, doing really well. Tammy's really done a great job of getting things caught up. There's still a lot of paper to put in a file cabinet, but it's in a computer. The audit is May 20th, so that'll be coming here before we know it. Gavin will be here for that, as well as the audit company. Emily Anderson and I and Brian Weldrick, Paul, it's not Jacob, the fire guy. Justin. I can never get a call him Jacob. And Cam, we've been working on trying to get a grant well, we identified, Brian Wildrick identified the problem in dispatch with a software that needs to integrate with another one. And then he did a bunch of searching for grants, and now Emily and him and I and Paul, we're gonna work on getting that grant together. And it will also work with some of the Geocom hardware that we need to finish that project. And then we're also looking at E911 grants, which are much larger this software grant is like 55 grand and it's a private grant. It's on a Google Doc form, so it's much more simpler. So we're investigating the E911 grants out there that are out there. So now that we have addressing, it's in the correct database format. Also Motorola has financing, so we're checking that out to see what that looks like. And then we're looking at bringing back the surcharge, the resolution, getting that on the meeting, start talking about that. So that's been going pretty good. And then I was just gonna say with what Charlotte talked about, we will have the dumpsters back in Heaney Trailer Court May 1st. We've been working with Monica. If we need to, we will take the snow out of the snow dumps to get something in there. We are having bear spray and bear safety training with Charlotte for a lot of people in the entire office, every department. And then Emily has put out, I think it was about a week and a half ago, the 6 a.m. Don't put your trash out before 6 a.m. The bears are waking up, and she's gonna flip that back up to the top like every other week until, June-ish. And so that's been good. And she has this great new email system that's called Gov Delivery. And she can actually tell when people not only click on the email, but actually open it, which is pretty cool. And we have a pretty high open rate. So that's been good. And that's all I have. And Colin will give his bi-weekly harbor report. You do, sort of.
I kind of do. Good evening, everyone. Here is my harbor report as of today. So continuing on with construction, obviously, as you can see, we have H, I, J, and K in place. H is almost done, should be done by Friday with most of the finger floats in place. We just completed the water tap, in the west access. So they'll start putting water to the system here in the coming days. They've got to do some sanitation, pressure test and sanitation and a few other things, and then obviously fill it in. But we should have water to J and K shortly. Electrical is in place and they're putting the pedestals in. You can see them out on the end of H over there. But it'll still be a while before they actually connect the power to it. So they still have to get transformers and things in there. And vessels, a lot of discussion about vessels moving into spots with serves approaching and fishing season approaching. What we're working on right now is getting boats into J and K as early as Monday. That's pretty realistic at this point. We just have to double check on Friday and Saturday just to see with the backfill on the road and access, and then come up with a traffic plan, because to open J and K, we have to anticipate obviously people walking down the west access trestle and walking across the road while we have heavy equipment operating. So we've got a traffic plan for that, but we have to fine tune a few more things before we can commit to that. So we're looking at the 20th to start putting boats into J and K with the traffic plan, and with the traffic plan, parking. We know parking is going to be a pain throughout this project, and we're about at the point where we've got a pretty good parking, I'd say workaround, just a solution, a short-term solution until parking's done on Nikoloff. And so we identified some areas, half the back wall or back section of the Cordova Center parking lot, the front row of the police department parking lot. That's an area where we can park. The back half of AC, we can park there. And then where the recycling bins are, we can take all of that for parking. So not perfect, but there's a lot of parking in those spots. So we'll be able to have folks park there, talk to AC, talk to all the businesses down on Nikoloff, and they said, yeah, no problem. The issue will be just the traffic safety. So we're going to try to, push everybody to, regardless of where they park, walk around the backside of Harbor Loop and come into the construction site. And ideally, we'll be done with a lot of the heavy dirt work on the west end of Nikoloff. And then we'll be working on the eastern side. So it won't be that big of a deal. But again, there's still going to be a lot of stuff and electricians moving stuff and, heavy equipment. So we just have to make sure this traffic plan makes sense and that we can support it. And everybody knows that's operating heavy equipment, and then communicate it as well as we can to the public and steer everybody on that's going to J&K into safe access. It's, very, very important that we get that right. Beyond that, for construction, still building out H. G is going to be the last float to go in. Hang up we've got right now is the pile. If you look out at where the pile is, that's just off the beach on the eastern side, which is where the drive down float will go, the big bridge, and then the access trestle. Those pile were driven to spec, which was 50 feet. That was supposed to be sufficient to hold. The mud is too soft there, so they're going to have to drive it to bedrock. That's at 80 feet. It's not a problem, except we don't have the pile. So the pile's been ordered. It'll ship, most of it'll ship on Tuesday from Seattle. So it's going to push us back a couple weeks, but we've got to get it right. So there's just no, it's big stuff, and it's, it'll hold a lot of weight, but it won't hold the weight that's anticipated. Some of those big concrete caps that go over the pile are 170,000 pounds a piece, and you're putting the bridge on there and vehicles and all that stuff. So, yeah, they drove them to what they thought was going to work based on our geotech, and it did not work. So some did, some didn't, but have to get them all right. Have to have the average up high enough. So that's a challenge. Put it in perspective, the city dock, when they were driving those piles, they're 240 feet into the mud. So, it's just the nature of the sea floor here. Bedrock, pretty sure, is at 80 feet. We drive them to bedrock, then they'll stop. And that should give us enough load bearing capacity on that. But we got to get the pile in and splice it on and continue to drive it. So once H is done, barge is going to come back. It's going to drive out the pile for the drive down float. That's not an issue because it's not load bearing pile. It's just lateral load on it. So they can just drive it to 50 feet and it's good. Build out the drive down float, drive as much pile as they can in and around the ramp. And then and about that time, we think that the pile should start showing up for splicing and driving. And then the last thing to go in is going to be G float, just because of real estate or, harbor area that you can have the material barge and the construction barge, because that's a lot of, that's big, obviously. So that's the big challenge we have right now. But it's, we can overcome it. We just have to wait for parts. Electrical's gone in, plumbing's gone in, fiber optic is gone in, or at least the conduit for fiber optic. I think they're going to blow, they blow it in with compressed air. That's going to go in at a later date. So Nikoloff's looking good, but still, plenty of work to go. We're about 80% there, I'd say, in total. And environmental, we are well below our thresholds for everything. There's nothing significant on take. Everything is way down from our max take. Even the sea otters, which is like 32, I think we're at like 6 or something. So no anticipated issues there, because again, we just don't have that much pile left to drive. I mean, there's a lot of pile, but it's not at the thresholds that we have to worry about the marine mammals. So we're feeling good about that. Funding, obviously that's the 800-pound gorilla. We're still stalled with MARAD. However, they're coming out next week. So instead of us going there, they're coming to us and they're going to hold our hand, and that's okay. I don't care what they do. I'll pick them up. They can sleep in my bed. Just get here. And the stated goal with these guys, and it's great that they stated this goal, is to not leave until we have the first reimbursement approved. And then they're going to work ahead for reimbursement 2 and 3 to get those packages. Because we have so many invoices right now, it's like we could just keep stacking them up. So we want to make sure that they don't just leave with one and then we start over again. So they're going to, hold our hand, get through it, and that's a good thing. So the 24th and 25th of this month rather, they'll be in town to do this. So and that was pressure from above. I think some people were aware of, Secretary of Transportation's talking to a senator about Cordova and about this process. And one of the takeaway was, we are going to help Cordova get through this for whatever reason.
It's crazy that it's like, you've done everything they've asked you to.
7 times.
Yeah, I mean, so we're going to help you? Like,
Yes.
How about if you help us?
I don't care what they say. Just show up and approve.
Yep,
And
play the game.
my ego is not bruised, just get it done.
Mhm.
So they'll be out here and that's their stated goal. And that's certainly our stated goal. So, it's a step in the right direction. So we haven't spent any money since then. We're still at $21.5 million. We filed for our $25,000 sewer pump out loan that is pending. That's it on finance. We still have 1.1 million left in the tier 1 grant that we filed 75%, 100%, and then project completion. Southwest corner of the harbor is still closed. Obviously, talked about that. Parking plans developed. Vessels will be placed back on or about Monday on J and K as close as we can, get them to their original spot, which it almost lines up exactly how it used to be. For serves, we're tracking that date. They start on the 30th, I think is their first in-water drill, but they've got some training days before that. We just got the list from Alyeska and all the boats that are participating and talked to Tony about it today. There shouldn't be any issues with getting those vessels into slips so that they can participate. It's almost like the same folks that have slips in J and K that are participating. They should be accommodated without too much trouble. And then we can get working on putting A and B in the North Harbor back together. So it'll be a little bit of juggling, but we feel really good about serves, about having enough space for folks to participate, at least on the list that we have of everybody that's going to be participating. And the barges, we know we have space for 2 of the mini barges. The third one, we're going to have to get potentially get creative to get the third one in. So got some work to do on that. Possible harbor commissioning ceremony. I'm working with Murkowski's schedulers, and I don't have absolute clarity on when she'll be here next. So working on that, and we're going to drive a lot of the opening ceremony towards having her and others. So, the earliest it'd be is 17th of May. I didn't get confirmation that that's going to happen, but certainly early June, it sounds like she's going to be here, but working on that and, just doing something nice. Mid-May would be great, but I think early June would be just as good. So it really depends. But if anybody has any, should do it or ideas, open to it. Fishing season, obviously mid-May, we're feeling pretty good about that. The drive down is going to be a challenge just because we got to wait for more materials, but floats will be obviously, they're in place and we should get to a stage where at least 4 of 5 should be open for business to the extent that we can. There will be a little bit of work with electrical and plumbing, but we're all confident we can manage that piece. And then construction overall is still scheduled to complete mid to late June. And that concludes my report. Pending questions.
I just quickly from the communication to the public, is it beneficial at this point? They're going to start seeing boats go in there. Should our message be we're getting serves and kind of essential boats in there? If you have your sports craft, hold off. If you just, I'm just curious, does that matter? Work with Tony. You're saying J and K, if someone had a sports vessel on K, but we're still trying to juggle from north and south, is it?
It does help, but that's one of the things we have to sort out. Like once we get, we know we have space, but it's that traffic plan.
Sure.
Like we really have to get that right before we open anything up. So we don't have it exactly right yet because we have to work with the contractors to see where they're going to be and what they can move out of the way. For the sake of serves, we feel confident that we have enough space to, for serves to happen. And then, but we're going to have to prioritize some folks, just like we did on getting people out and moving them to the North Harbor. So it sounds like Tony's got that well in hand. I've looked at the list. It's not a big list. It's like 27 boats that will need to go in on J and K. So I'm confident we'll have enough space, and we're going to handle that by communicating directly to the vessel owner operators to say, okay, your spot is open. You can go here, instead of just saying J and K are open. Come one, come all.
Perfect.
Because that would be that just wouldn't go well. So so that's the way we're going to handle it. And Monday's looking like the earliest day. We talked about Sunday, but we really need to give those guys more time to get the road fixed up and clear the traffic pattern out. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions for Colin? Thank you, Colin.
All right, thank you.
Carry on.
I do have one
Yeah.
question. I was just gonna ask our city manager. Do you have any updates on there was mention in minutes earlier about the subdivision of some university land on Whiteshed Road? I'm just wondering.
Kevin's working with the person and I believe it's May before they will be here. I'm not sure what that date is, but it's still ongoing.
Cool.
He's still communicating and, yeah, it sounds like it's something that's gonna happen
Mhm.
for sure.
Super.
Hey, any other questions? Was that are you done, Sam? Any other questions for Sam? Okay, clerk's report.
Well, it sounds like we'll talk about a lot at pending agenda. And all I put in my written report was a little bit of a timeline on property. We did the BOE and then what comes next is certify the roll and then set the mill rate. And I'm looking at June dates and we have to set the mill rate by June 15th and the meetings are the 5th and the 19th. So we'll probably be doing it on June 5th. But at pending agenda, we'll talk about how May 1st isn't going to work for a meeting date. So we'll see. And then I'll make sure I get with the school district. Anyway, and then of course I put this in about Parks and Rec 2 board seats available, commission seats, and then PISWAC's city rep. I have one Parks and Rec applicant, so I think I might just bring that next time to get one on there. But if you can drum up interest, and Emily has put this on all the places, and so we'll just maybe refresh that again for people. And that's about it. We'll talk at PA, favorite spot.
Okay, any questions for the clerk? Okay, then we got our staff quarterly reports.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, on the volunteer fire department there, all the staff reports I appreciate, but I never really get a sense of, I don't hear the fire trucks, the ambulance going, the police officers, all that, but when I see these reports, it really drives home how busy and active they are and the service that they present to the city. So I always appreciate those reports. And I also appreciate, looks like there's an uptick in the Cordova Center revenue and a breakdown. Seems like that's a growing interest and I appreciate that too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on? Yeah.
I was corked. But I was gonna say the same thing about the fire department report. I had no idea we were at those kind of hours. And I did not know what IO training was, and they drill into bones to inject IV fluid. And I too wanted to point out the Cordova Center tally because Megan's doing an outstanding job with bookings and getting things out there, so.
Okay, any other comments on the?
I appreciate Ashley taking over the library and the museum because she has a pretty big
Mhm.
conference coming in at the end of this year. And so they're doing some heavy moving in the museum to prepare for that conference. And now she's doing the library as well. So I appreciate all her hard work with that.
Thank you. Correspondence? Yes.
I'm just thinking about the Friends of Valdez Animal Shelter and wondering if there's any response to that or if we can help with that. What
What did I say? I forgot. I got it. Numbers from her. Did I write it in here?
letters in here, but.
I know. And then I asked her how much it would come to.
20
2,500 was what she was thinking
Like
as a match.
lodging for how many people are they looking for?
Well, yeah, she thought the match like to that would be approximately $2,500, including everything.
Mhm.
But then she wanted us to find a place also, not
Well, she
included.
wasn't, I mean, the email you got back wasn't specific to, I want this and this. It was just like $2,500 would be a match to what. I almost looked at it as an option, like you can give cash or you can help us do these things.
Right, I see, I agree.
And it's, yeah, to find places and coordinate that kind of stuff, money might be better.
Well, I'm not saying you guys need to take that on. I'm just wondering.
Well, you guys would need to tell us, because unless you just want us to find money out of where, I don't know.
Guess I was thinking more about the space, but space with, yeah. Okay.
Well,
I don't know where that would.
those vets that came last time, they used the science center, old science center building one time.
Mhm.
But what happened this last time?
I used-
They,
I
Oh.
know, because we
It's
said
cold
no.
in there.
Oh, because it's too cold.
it's cold in the,
It
in the
was too,
science.
yeah,
center
yeah.
building.
Last time was.
Yeah.
Summery.
Okay, well, so maybe we need to get another, some other community folks together to talk about it and brainstorm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, anything else on the correspondence? Okay, then we'll move along to ordinances and resolutions. Ordinance 1216. Well, we had the public hearing on this is second reading. That's what make major changes. We want to make a motion? Somebody wants to move ordinance 1216? Yeah.
Sure.
Kristen.
Move ordinance 1216. I mean, you want me to read it?
No, you don't need to.
Okay.
Second.
Hey, Kristen.
Well, let's see, so this is a new ordinance, I mean, a new.
It's
Well,
second reading.
This is second
read,
reading.
That's right. Okay, so accepting the grant, we have to accept the grant and then authorize borrowing of $3 million. Yeah, so we've talked about it before and we've just heard from Colin about the challenges with getting the bills paid, so this would help us with cash flow. So I support it.
Councilmember Jones.
Yeah, I support it.
Councilmember Baylor.
Yeah, I'm good.
Councilmember Rainey.
I support it.
Councilmember Sherman.
Support it.
Councilmember Kinsman.
Yeah, I'll support it to move forward, but again, I liked the direction we're going with the first round of 3 million. I appreciate your comments, Mayor Allison, and that I actually had similar thoughts, but yeah, I'll support it. Let's get it going. We need the funding and move forward, but not to take lightly that $150,000 could be used.
Councilmember Zastro.
I support it.
Okay, roll call, please.
On adoption of ordinance 1216. Kathy Sherman,
Yes.
Ken Jones,
Yes.
Casey Kinsman,
Yes.
Kristen Carpenter,
Yes.
Tom Baylor,
Yes.
Wendy Rainey,
Yes.
Dave Zastro.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, we got substitute resolution 04-2414, a resolution of the council of City of Cordova, Alaska, authorizing specific officers of the city of Cordova as signers, city checks, vouchers, notes, and other documents.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
I move to approve substitute resolution 04-2414.
Second.
Councilmember Sherman?
Yeah, this is housekeeping and I think we just need to insert the proper title for the manager.
Okay, and I think we're removing Helen Howarth too.
Yes.
Yes.
Who was, Kristen?
Yeah, nothing to add. Thank you.
Anybody have anything to add to that? Is this voice vote? So all those in favor of substitute resolution 04-2414?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 04-24-19, resolution of the Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, approving a line of credit agreement between KeyBank LLC and the city and authorizing the city manager to execute that agreement. This kind of attached to our ordinance 1216 there.
So moved.
Second.
Kristen,
I don't think there's anything new I can,
nothing to add, Sherman?
I support it.
Nothing to add, but I'm glad Marat's coming to hold our hand so we can get some
Yes.
other money.
Let him, I say, let him hold our hand, but keep Turnigan right behind him.
Yes.
Okay, voice vote. All those in favor of resolution 04-24-19, say aye.
Aye.
I
Opposed?
prefer they hold our hand instead of hold our hand.
Yeah, yeah.
We all would.
Put the check in our hands. Okay, resolution passes unanimously. The resolution 04-24-20, resolution of the Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, urging the state legislature and the governor to increase the base student allocation this year and inflation-proof the BSA into the future for the benefit of Cordova School District students and all public school students in Alaska.
So moved. Second.
Councilmember Rainey?
Yeah, I just see it as an issue that education is falling off the radar and we're to the point where we're discussing not being able to fund food service to our school. So anything we can do to help get the governor's head out of his ass, I think is a good move.
Okay, who was the second? Sherman?
I was, I thought it was a very well-written resolution and, I think almost every community in Alaska is having to write one of these, not just us. So I hope they all do.
Yep, thank you. Anybody else? Jump in there? Okay, voice vote on this too. All those in favor of resolution 04-24-20, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Resolution 04-24-21, a resolution of the Council of the City of Cordova, Alaska, authorizing the city manager to enter into a sole source contract with Different Strokes Alaska to purchase and install a new engine in the refuse division Ford F-550 Super Duty XL.
So move.
Seconded.
Councilmember Sherman?
So I think my first question was, why aren't they buying a new truck? But then I read the memo and I think the last paragraph under the background information answers all my questions. And I think looks like staff did a really good job of figuring out the best cost-effective solution. And I was really pleased to see, it was the first thing I was looking for, that they kept up on the preventative maintenance schedule. So kudos to the team for that.
Councilmember Kinsman?
I'll just echo those remarks. I was impressed with the
Sorry.
same line and read the same paragraph, and that made complete sense to me. So thank you, staff, for putting the work into it so we can go right along with this.
Anybody else have anything to add? Okay, all those, we don't have.
It's
to-
budgeted money, so
Okay.
it's okay.
Okay, all those in favor of resolution 04-24-21, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. No unfinished business.
Can I
So-
comment on the last resolution?
What's that, Tom?
Can I still make a little comment on it though? It was,
Yeah, go ahead.
I see the amount was 28,000, but I think I would appreciate if our new manager, even if that amount was 24,000, that would come before us. I think public and council has the right to kind of know where our money's going, even though the city manager would have had the right to spend anything under 25. But just a note for me, I would it's appreciated when this comes to us. So, thank you.
Yep, thank you. No unfinished business, no miscellaneous business, pending agenda. Susan, you had a few items.
Well, okay. May 1st, like you guys all praised Megan for, she's got a paying customer, so I said, all right, well, that's enough time, and yeah, we'll do something different. But now that the school isn't getting us anything by May 1st anyway, I don't know. I don't know if anything is quickly pending, but maybe we'll see, but the 2 days that would work for a special meeting to fill in would be the 6th or the 9th. Do those work for you guys? Either noon or 6 PM kind of thing? So that if something comes up that we think is time sensitive before May 15th, we'll try and have a special. Obviously, I can ask you at a later time too, but if everybody can think about those 2 days,
Mhm.
the 6th is a Monday,
Yeah,
the
either
9th
one.
is a Thursday.
Mhm.
And I am generally always in favor of an evening.
Of later, but it would 6 work?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right, so we'll think about that and see what comes before then. And if we threw one of those, if you wanted to add this watershed thing as an item on there, as a discussion item, or a short work session before. Did Kate say she needed something sooner than that?
It'd be good to have
Grants.
it sooner. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're hoping to find something by the end of May.
End of May or end of April? I thought she said,
Well, okay, end of.
Yeah,
End of April
permitting.
for May.
She said
Okay.
her goal is May.
does anybody want to suggest anything then?
I feel bad that since Casey, next week would work if we did a evening session. I was gonna say lunchtime, but that doesn't work for him, so. I'm amenable. I certainly can do an evening. I don't think it has to be a long session.
I can do evenings or lunchtime, either one.
Mhm.
But are we making a decision or are we talking about it? Because we'll need an agenda item, right? If she needs action.
Well, then
I
we
don't
have a
know what
discussion
action.
to bring forth an agenda item for the next council. That's,
Oh,
I
okay.
would think it'd be a work
Expect-
session.
yeah.
I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know what decision we would make yet.
She was still working with the state.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah,
Because,
yeah.
They
So I'd say
could,
a
yeah.
work session.
they
and
could
then
work it out.
we
if the
find-
ask is for the city to take it over, then that is absolutely agenda. I mean,
Right, right.
Right, but maybe we could have some of our questions answered.
exactly.
There's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
to go about, so.
Right, yeah, I was
Mhm.
gonna say, there's a lot that has to happen before that's a yes,
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
Would the 30th be work for a work session?
What, is Duncan here? Where do they meet? The Parks and Rec is on the 30th.
I think they meet
They-
mayor's conference.
Do they
Usually
meet
mayor's-
in Mayor?
Yeah.
Okay. The 30th.
I'd
Would-
be more amendable to the 29th. I'm traveling the 30th. So
We're gonna have to have an agenda item if we're gonna say yes to taking it over.
Right, I guess I just thought if we met next week and there were questions and things that had to happen,
I know.
and then
I can't do Monday or Tuesday, and then CEC, where do they meet? Upstairs.
Upstairs.
Oh, okay, so we could do Wednesday, 24th,
Mhm.
6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Of course, I didn't get all of Megan's schedule. Shit.
You want me to go see if it's on the, oh,
It'll
no.
be
it
on
wouldn't be
there a
yet.
week at a time.
I can
okay.
text her.
Could we do Wednesday or Thursday, just so I have a few days to play with?
Sure.
24th or 25th?
Yeah.
I would prefer Thursday. Wednesday is my anniversary. So
Oh.
I should
Well,
probably
we
not
better
be
do
here. that day.
Thursday.
Shoot for Thursday.
Or that would be an excused absence in my book.
Yeah.
Where's that?
They usually meet here.
I don't even put that on my calendar.
What's that?
That's hospital services and there and the hospital. Yeah, I don't put historical
Thursday.
society. So Thursday is what is looking good?
Thursday, he said would be better.
6 PM, work session. Aggregate watershed.
Okay.
Um,
Tell her.
Yeah.
It's not like it's gonna
I hope it
cost-
works for her.
Yeah.
And I think there was something else. I'll get with the school to decide what they're doing about getting me. Is it a resolution that we pass giving their funding?
Yeah,
You think that can wait
Yeah.
until the 15th?
I think so, yeah.
Uh-huh.
They present us their budget, which is about 4 pages. And then we'll have a resolution that supports that. And remember a couple of years ago, we added a paragraph to the end of that resolution that
Mhm.
says, depending on budget availability.
Mhm. And there's 2 weeks between May 15th and June 1st, but they don't have to get it to the state until June 15th.
Right,
Right.
So if we needed to have a special even, we could.
yeah. If we're gonna agree with what they got, then there's probably not a whole lot more that they can talk about until after they find out what the state gets. But if we're gonna not agree and give them half or something, then obviously they're gonna have to go.
When
back
does the
to-
legislature adjourn? When do we know?
Well, they had, usually it's April 20th. I don't think they're. gonna-
Yeah,
And then the governor has till the 30th of June to sign
Yeah.
the budget, do line item vetoes as well. So
Until the end of June. And
At least,
districts have to
uh,
get theirs to the state
middle. of-
before that.
middle of
Yeah.
June, yeah.
So, yeah. How is that even fair?
That's what the discussion was on the legislative floor today.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
done talking. I'm done.
Anyway, anybody else have anything for pending agenda?
Oh, am I bringing the council one?
And I think it just needs to be put out there so we can.
Okay, okay. And I have it almost together. I'm also working
Yeah.
on a proclamation that I will do sometime soon.
And I know what she's talking about. This is about city council attendance
Mhm.
policy.
And
And
then
two
resolution
versions
for
of
it.
it. So
What else? What were you saying?
The resolution or the,
Proclamation
Proclamation
for Anne.
for
I'm
Ann.
working on it. Yeah, the council attendance policy will come and maybe add a special if we have a special or else May 15th.
I just wanted to bring up, because it doesn't look like it's going to happen at this point. I know we did it last year, but that's a joint work
Yeah.
session with the school board.
The mayor
Um,
did it for us this year.
And which I appreciate, and I'm fine with that. Last year was pretty beneficial, and I'd like to, we're not doing it now, that's fine. I feel like there's been a lot of dialogue, which I
think we need to
appreciate.
do that when we're doing our budget. for next
And-
year.
and no matter- and-
We'll have to decide for sure.
Right,
Right.
absolutely. And I on here, it does show
That we do it.
twice.
Twice.
Once
And I think
before
it is
they do their
beneficial to
budget
do
and
it
once
twice,
before, yeah.
just so, I mean, I've gone to some of the meetings, some of us independently have gone to the meetings, but it's nice to have a unified message
Yep.
of needs. Again, I don't really see it happening by then. Yes. Yeah.
It's about a different topic, so.
Okay. Unless someone else sees something in there, I think we're pretty tapped out by now and the end of the month. But moving forward, I definitely want to make sure we have something this fall and probably in October.
Yeah.
So I'm putting some emphasis on that. Go ahead.
Kristen?
I was going to ask, we've talked about doing a joint work session with planning and zoning to talk about housing strategies. I don't know if,
The planning and zoning director is now the public works director, so.
Mm-hmm.
okay. I
Yeah,
mean, I just didn't
I'll throw.
want people to think I wasn't,
Yes.
but it might be worth checking with Kevin about just to see.
A housing discussion
Mhm.
strategy?
Yeah, yeah, because we do have some things that we have started talking about and it'd be good to
I'm always in
keep
favor of
that
that.
conversation
It
going.
might be good after that guy from the state is here.
Mhm.
That would be, the
Mhm.
person from the state is here,
Yeah,
because that would be interesting to throw
Mhm.
out there.
Yeah.
What
Yep.
exactly that means.
Yeah, that was gonna be what I said is have a housing workshop and investment workshop.
Investment,
Yeah, like incentives for
Incentives.
investment. It's on the,
Yeah.
the
it's on the-
economic development part.
Yeah.
Which brings us back to Title V.
7, yep.
Mhm.
So we talked, Stu and I talked about this today. I talked with Dottie Widman, who's looking to see what that looks like. And I think maybe, I feel like I could maybe focus on that now and get on to the 15th.
Perfect.
Sorry, I'm just not.
It's okay. No, it's just, I'm making that face at myself. Yeah, so I think I talked with Dottie today. She's very interested. She's wants to build a building and work on that. And so I feel like I could focus on that a little bit now. So maybe the 15th.
Before the regular meeting, have a work session?
Yeah, I can talk with Holly and Jess and see where they're at.
Related to Title V specifically, because my understanding before we went into investments and anything else, we needed to shore up Title V, then we could start talking about revenue, investments.
Title V first.
Yeah, was my understanding. I think that was kind of the sequence if I
Yeah, we're
understood
kind
it.
of just waiting on that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Title V first. No.
And then just to clean up, or maybe there's some history, item 5 on future agenda items. What I mean is, see, it's from 2022.
There was a
What-
woman whose son died and she asked us to do that. And
Okay.
then when I first looked into it, it sounded like the governor was pushing for something like that. And I don't know if anything ever came of it or not. But I don't know.
So do we need to just put a resolution together saying we
But
support
it's so
that?
broad that I didn't know how to write it
No, no,
as something that
absolutely.
you guys
Well,
would all
I think the
support.
question is, I mean, it might be, maybe there's something you could ask Stutes' staff about, like, has there been a bill introduced in the past that might get reintroduced? Because I think there's been some legislation that they've talked about, but it doesn't
I know.
always come up. And so I would,
Okay,
her staff could find out if there's
that's a good suggestion. Thank you.
a
Okay.
bill that
Okay.
might, I mean, certainly it won't happen this time, but who's been
Sure.
sponsoring and could we reference that legislation?
Okay.
In our resolution. Yeah, perfect. Thank you for the history and hopefully we can get some traction. And obviously knowing that it's tied to an individual, that gives me a little more incentive to, let's move this along. Thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor,
Yes, go ahead, Tom.
I know it's a long list, but maybe in sometime in the near future, we should start having a discussion about changing our, I don't know if it's code or ordinance, what it is, but as far as hiring somebody that can work part-time away from Cordova, it might help us with some of our employees. I think currently they have to live in Cordova, correct? So do we need to look at that for future employment opportunities?
Yeah, Sam's on,
Yep.
on that case. So, yeah, code requires some of them do to,
Charter.
some of them do, and
I think
some
it's
of
in
them don't
charter.
have
It's
to.
in
Charter.
Charter.
Mm.
And
Every
Yeah.
officer.
Well, I think I
But-
would support a discussion on that at some point, if staff can get that together.
Yep. Anything else on the pending agenda? Hearing none, then we'll move along to audience participation. We've got one staff member left in the audience, our tech guy.
One survivor.
He doesn't look like he's rushing up to say anything, so move along then to council comments. We'll start online with you, Tom.
Oh, great. Well, it's the discussion with planning zoning on the housing. That's an interesting one, seeing as they just voted here not too long ago to approve a sale by a conditional use permit to take a duplex out of the housing system to a nonprofit. So that certainly doesn't help our situation. I was very pleased at our last meeting with the lawyer. I don't have her name. Maybe somebody can give the name for the
Yes.
record.
Yes.
But she was precise to the point. You asked her question, you got an answer. We didn't have to interrupt her speech. So I'm very pleased with the way she represented it and look forward to working with her in the future. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Tom. Councilmember Rainey.
I appreciate the information from Kate. Looking forward to that work session on that. Getting some more information so we can move forward with that. Already talked about Ashley taking over library duties with her museum duties, and I always appreciate Duncan's reports and how thorough they are. Thorough and professional. That's really nice to see. And congratulations to Sam.
Thanks.
Councilmember Sherman.
Yeah, I too that, I have not been up to date on the Weir issue, so that was very educational for me. I had no idea there was all that background in there. Um, and kudos to Emily, those PSAs have been really good. And they're flooding the inbox, which is good. Dixon did not read it though and put the garbage out the night
Uh-oh.
before, so I will speak with him about that. Yeah, and I think, the word is getting out about, Friends of the Library is really growing, so we have more volunteers at both museum and library, which is helping. And I was just thinking, I think too, that the Valdez Spay Clinic, if we get that information out, that we could probably raise funds locally, for that event or for that. It used to happen, so I'm sure we can probably do it again. Just,
And I think they're not looking till
Like,
2025, I don't think.
yeah, but I mean, I think that would really be a good thing for the community to work towards. So that's all I have.
Councilmember Carpenter?
Sure, thank you. I also want to say thanks to Kate for coming in and thanks to the council for being willing to talk some more about that. I wanted to echo Dave's comment earlier. Thanks to Charlotte for coming in and taking the time to talk to us and obviously to meet with city crew and talk about bear safety. And say welcome to Sam and thank you for stepping up. And I don't remember if I said it before, so I want to say now, thank you to Helen, even though she's not here, still in absentia, but thanks to her for her leadership, for the work that she did for the city. She was on board to help get the city through COVID, and that was no small feat. So anyway, yeah, those are my comments. Thank you.
I have her address too, and she does have upcoming surgery if anybody wants to drop her a card.
Sounds good. Yeah, can you?
Yeah.
Can you email that? to us?
Yeah, I can share that.
Thank you. Okay, Vice Mayor Kinsman.
Oh, thank you. Great information from Kate and Charlotte. Oh, it's always great. Charlotte's a wealth of knowledge on that topic, and it's very applicable information. And I'll piggyback. Just anyone's listening, quit doing bear watch. I think that was the main message. Just stop. It's not helpful. It's not needed.
Guilty pleasure.
Find a different guilty private pleasure. But thank you for that information. Very informative. Congrats, Sam. And I also had thank you to Helen for her tenure and service as a city manager. The Q1 reports were great. Always enjoy looking at the numbers. And with that, also notice the amount of dedication for and from our first responders. So thank you to all of them, especially a lot of times of thankless service. So that's all I have.
Councilmember Zastro.
Yeah, also I really appreciated both Charlotte and Kate coming in, and I have been tracking the Weir pretty closely over the last several years in my other role in the community, and it's super important, the variety of things that this Weir is going to provide to the community, not just to the city, but to the state, all concerned in the community. So I'm hoping we can find some way to support that. And obviously Charlotte, yeah, wealth of information. I can't believe she's been around 11 years already. I didn't realize she'd been around that long. Also, Sam, thank you so much for stepping up, and it's so fantastic that you're taking over the position with your wealth of knowledge, experience. I don't think we could have done any better. And I didn't have a chance, obviously, to be on this council, work with Helen, but I have worked with Helen in other ways, and I've really appreciated her leadership as well. So, and I hope she recovers. That's all I have.
Councilmember Jones.
Not sure if I can really add to what's been said. Thanks, everybody, for coming out. I appreciate full 7-seat participation in these council meetings.
Mhm.
And congratulations to Sam, and look forward to working with you. And yeah.
Okay, I can't add a whole lot either, but I do want to say, pass along thanks to Helen for the efforts she does and or she did for us, and know that our thoughts and prayers are with her through this. Hopefully she recovers fully and can carry on. And thank you, Sam. Look forward to seeing what ideas are for for staffing and fill a few empty positions and,
I got some ideas.
and now that it's in your ballpark,
Stewardship.
just keep the council informed and appreciate the efforts you're doing for that already.
Good.
It's much appreciated. So we don't have any other need for an executive session at this point in time, I don't believe, yeah?
Nope.
So there being no further business, we will adjourn the meeting.
Breaking a
Good,
short.
everybody.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
See you in a week.
Okay. Hey, that phone, well, for that executive session, just so you know.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
What happened?